To the first meeting of 2025, our regular monthly meeting of January 7, 2025. Thank you for turning out on such a cold evening. I'm Stu Hardy, Chair of the Planning Board, and I'd like to begin with a roll call. Mr. Gerlach.
Present.
Mr. Shriver is on travel today. Ms. Gomes?
Present.
Mr. Taylor?
Present.
Ms. Eva?
Present.
Ms. Hilton?
Present.
Ms. Lopes?
Present.
Mr. Clark?
Present.
So we have 8 of 9 and a quorum. And I'd like to invite Mr. O'Connor to come up to the table. The first item on our agenda is a request for a 1-year extension of vesting for the master plan that we approved for something called Sousa Road condominiums. And this is the roughly 9 to 10 acre parcel at the corner of Sousa Road and Main Road that Oxford Development Group had, but I believe that Oxford has now gone away, but the project is now owned by Trilogy.
Right, by the owner. Yes.
Okay, so the owner of the property, exactly. So tell us a little bit about your application and.
Sure. So we were here last 2 years ago.
Yeah, the mic. I'm sorry.
And your name is Christopher O'Connor.
Yes, Christopher O'Connor. I'm an attorney at Blishing Kavanaugh, locaed in our office is located in Providence.
So we were kind of expecting William Landry, who we know well, but
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor, I should have mentioned that earlier that Mr. O'Connor is representing.
That's right. I work with Mr. Landry. I'm pinch hitting tonight for him. This is on my way home to South Kingston from Providence. So we were last here, or Mr. Landry was last here just about 2 years ago on January 10th, 2023, on the application for a master plan for mixed-use development, which included a comprehensive permit application for a mix of commercial and residential at the property located at the corner of Sousa and Main Street.
Main Road.
Main Road, thank you. This the sort of the chronology of things, not that there's that big of a chronology. It received favorable consideration. Master plan was approved in January 10th of 2023. There was a decision. It was, I think, from what I could tell from the records, not recorded until recently, December 5th, 2024. However, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't affect why we're here tonight. It has been just about 2 years. The vesting period is 2 years. And we have filed with the town, with the planning office in early December of 2024, our notice of an extension, which I understand, at least the first extension, the first 2 are by right. However, the statute also asked the applicant to come in and give an idea of where we are. And that's why we're here.
Right. So you're entitled to 2 1-year extensions.
Yes.
And you're asking for the first of those extensions tonight.
That's right. So this extension would take us until 2026.
Right.
Right?
Right.
January of 2026. When we don't have that much to report, other than, as you noted correctly, that the owner of the property, Trilogy Tiverton, which is also a developer, has taken over. Oxford has stepped back. Trilogy has stepped in and has taken over the development of the project. At the same time, they have the same team in place. Dupree Engineering and the architect was Union Studios. They're reevaluating. They're taking another look at things. From what I understand, they're considering a potential of downsizing the proposal. However, there's really no specifics to discuss at this point in terms of what that means. It would still be a mixed use. It still would be the same concept. It may, I stress, be smaller in size and scope. What they anticipate is making a decision within the next month or two, and should be back before this board within a few months is what's anticipated. So clearly we will be in contact with the planning department and planner in terms of how we proceed and what decisions are made, but that's what we anticipate going forward. We will definitely be back.
So I probably should mention that we probably shouldn't be talking about the project itself tonight. We can, that will happen when you come back with a plan.
Right.
But if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask, now is the good time to do it.
I have a comment to make on that statement you just said. There are new members of the board here tonight that weren't involved. I have to apologize to you because I threw my materials out because I was told it was gone. Oxford was gone. I'm not a lawyer, and so I was purging because I have too much information. Right. And then, are you aware that I think it was Narragansett Electric came in, and the town council made a zoning change for the property there, a zoning amendment. So use it as a laydown area. I was up there today, and it is a laydown area.
Yeah, laydown for, what I've been told is that there is some storage of, is it for poles?
Oh, it is.
It's more than that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I forgot the project. I go to the council meetings, and I think it was a May timeframe. It came back and forth. George Watson was the attorney, and he was talking to Mike Marcello and the town administrator at the time, and I'm just listening. I thought it was the same property, but it is the same property.
Yeah.
So how does that affect?
Where are you going with this, Ms. Eva?
I want to know. It was changed. I mean, they're using this not as a development for Oxford or,
Right. So what I think, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I think what's taking place and what's there is very temporary. I think it's storage for utility work that's taking place in the area.
They had to change the zoning code.
I think so.
I know they did.
Okay.
But I mean, and it came before this board too, for recommendation to go along with them, because this board wanted them to go on the property that they own behind the park and ride off of Fish Road. But today I went through there, and they put cribbing down, and they are utilizing it. So how does this affect?
It doesn't affect. They're allowed to use, the zoning was changed in that laydown area, we'll call it, for temporary storage of this material, is a permitted use now.
It is now.
So they are allowed to use that property for that use. It does not affect the granting of the master plan to Oxford or Trilogy 2 years ago.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Right.
So
I do
Mr.
have a question, just in the spirit of, because I'm one of those
New people.
new people. Is it possible to get a historical copy of the master plan, Ed, on this?
Yes, Ed will certainly get you a copy of the master plan decision and the plan, which, yes,
We
you can
were
do that.
given the copy of the decision in it.
Okay.
I did put the submission of the master plan on the Google Drive today.
Oh, okay, all right, I'll go back and check
Okay.
that out. Thank you.
Because I was creating questions.
And so as part of what the next step is, if it's preliminary, surely the proposal will be in a lot more detail than you saw at master plan. That's just the nature of preliminary, especially the engineering and things like that. Although from what I could tell from what was submitted 2 years ago, there was a fair amount of detail included with the plans, or at least the concept, I think with fire, as it related to fire and turning radiuses.
Environmental bias.
Yeah, exactly. There was a traffic study done and submitted.
We had a
as well.
TRC on that matter
Okay.
before it came in. And it's, well, thanks, Ashley, for getting the information, the decision to us.
And as I remember, or as looking through the materials, I think the board granted
Additional.
master plan 8-1 was what the vote was. I don't know what the turnover has been.
I think it
but
was conditional or not. I
there were a number of conditions.
Right.
As part of the approval. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Well, yes, would you like to make a motion?
Although I do have one question. The agenda in the petition says the extension would extend the master plan approval to December 5th, 2027. The action, however, is listed as a one-year extension, not two. So we're
There's a
talking
mistake
about
in the agenda.
one-year extension. In that case, I will make a motion to extend the master plan approval for owner applicant Trilogy Tiverton LLC, the Oxford Development Group, to extend the master plan decision approval for 1 year pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4523-39C7.
Do we have a
I'll
second?
second the discussion.
So we have a second. Is there discussion?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Mr. Connor, will Oxford be taken away or come back as Trilogy? How is this going to be applied for?
So I believe the trilogy, and I don't know exactly how it will work, but the way it should and likely will work is that Trilogy was on the application as the owner of the property
Owner applicant.
back in 2023. It's not unusual for a developer to step back and for someone to step into the shoes of the developer, and that's what Trinity will do. So I suspect, without knowing for certain, that Trilogy will be the applicant on the next application. And so that Oxford will likely not be. And there'll be the paperwork that takes place between, if necessary, between the two entities that dots those I's and crosses those T's.
Because Trilogy, I believe, brought it from Starwood and before that.
Yes.
I mean, just for following the paper trail through here, because we have had Trilogy with Seasons. So if we can have some kind of tracking this project through now.
The plans are transferable, and as we all know, Mr. Landry will do a bang-up job of making sure you are well aware of what's going on.
But it's the first time I met Mr. O'Connor, so I think.
I'll let him know. I'll quote you
vouch.
on that.
I will
Bang up
vouch
job.
for Mr. O'Connor.
And so is Matt, too.
Yes.
Matt Landry.
Yes, he is.
So we've got a motion and we've got a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing no further discussion, we don't need to take a roll call on this. This will just be a vote. All of those in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Keep warm. So that is the extent of our applications tonight, and now we can get on to planning board business. And so we're on agenda item number 2A, which has to do with the hiring of an engineer who will specialize in hydrology. And I'd like to call on Tricia Hilton to give us a little background on her conversations with University of Rhode Island. She gave us a little bit of background at our last meeting, as you'll recall. But she's had further conversations, I believe.
So the update is, we did hear from one of the professors who will be involved in this study. They apologized that they hadn't gotten a proposal out to us already, but they're working on it, and we expect to have one soon. I think if I don't hear something this week, I'll reach back out. They are, in the middle of their winter break, so I'm not sure how much time they're in the office right now. But as soon as we get the proposal, and I hope we will have it for sure before our next scheduled meeting, where we can review it and determine if we're going to go forward.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Tricia? We'll be hearing more about this later. In which case, I believe, Ashley, did you have anything you wanted to add? No? Then 2B is related, and this would be amending our bylaws, the planning board bylaws, which I hope you all have a copy of. This is what they look like in hard copy. To authorize a hydraulic engineer in addition to the consulting engineer that is already in our bylaws. So who would like to take the lead on this issue? We didn't have any backup on this particular agenda item, so I haven't seen any language for amending our bylaws, but maybe it's only a sentence, and maybe we can do it right now and vote to amend our bylaws.
I don't think it's necessary, quite frankly, because we have consulting engineer in here, which is supposed to, cover so many disciplines. And I really don't think...
Rosemary, I think that when you get into hydrology, as we need to get into it in great depth,
I understand.
You need a specialist, somebody who understands geology and other disciplines as well as the pure engineering. So I think we would.
It's not only peer engineering.
I think it's two people.
I didn't get around to sending you anything. I worked on it today.
That's fine.
Put it up on the screen, what I can show to you.
Not complaining. We can certainly keep this
And it's
on the
only for
agenda for our
discussion
next
tonight.
meeting. Yes. And so you'd like to put something on the screen? So while Todd is doing that, VA, you had a question?
It kind of builds on where Rosemary's going is
Could you use the mic, please? I've had some problems.
I forgot, sorry.
Thank you.
As it pertains to the consultant engineer, is that, Rosemary, are you viewing that as like a consultant engineer can be kind of any engineer, right?
Any
This
discipline.
covers the blanket, right? That's what you're reading this as? Yeah.
I worked with these engineers for many years.
Oh, I'm reading it the same. I just wanted to understand to that point is.
Right.
But
does this
you're,
blanket-
I
yeah.
think we're mixing things, and I think you'll see the clarity when this goes up on the screen. But I think there's two things to consider. One is that you have a consulting engineer,
Right.
and your request for engineering review can cover literally any topic under the umbrella of engineering to your consulting engineer. It's his determination whether that's an area of expertise for himself or someone else within the firm that you've contracted with. So if you ask Nathan for a water review, Nathan's gonna go to the two people that I gave you resumes for that cover water, that are gonna provide that service to you. That's still all within your consulting engineer. The changes that Todd is putting up on the screen is that we are going to be asking for retainers for two different things. We're asking for a retainer for site plan review. That's the site civil review that Nathan does, where they look at stormwater and all the other components of the design of the physical structure. The second one that he's put up here is an appropriate retainer for a water availability review. That request will also go to Nathan if you want it done. Nathan will take that to one of the two water experts within Weston and Sampson, and the money will get drawn from different places. It's just two retainers. One is to cover basically everything but water, and then one is to cover water.
I think it's good. Personally, this is what we've been doing over the years, and I sat on many interviews, had to recuse myself because of where I worked. And you're right, but I mean, I don't think that we have to be that specific, but our legal eagle can tell us, I mean, if we have to,
I think I think what I'm proposing clarifies the procedure for you. And what I've put up on the screen right now is the consultant engineer escrow schedule that the planning board has previously approved. And I've gone ahead and said that every application shall submit the appropriate retainer for site plan review. and the appropriate retainer for water availability review shall be submitted for every minor subdivision of three units or lots, every major subdivision, every business park expedited review, and every development plan review project requiring formal DPR. And then I've gone ahead and I've clarified, for example, administrative subdivision was a $500 escrow previously. I've now clarified that that is for site plan review. I have minor subdivision, site plan review, major site plan review for the 3 phases of review. And then commercial, I specifically state that's for site plan review, in addition to site plan review fees for minor and major subdivisions. And then we have the expedited park, development plan, I apologize. I've included development plan review, site plan, administrative and DPR, and formal, excuse me. And then what you probably really want to see is the water availability review, and I didn't know what else to call it. I thought that was large enough to capture, because we've talked about so many different water things. Is that correct, Trish?
I think so.
So I have it broken down for minor subdivisions where you have public water available, sewer available, both water and sewer available. And this may be overkill, I don't know. Somebody smarter than me has to tell me this.
I can take this back and ask them if we need to have this many categories, or if
Yeah.
it can be consolidated, or how they think we should structure a fee schedule based on what they do for review.
Right, right. And then the same breakdown for major land subdivisions.
This is really a template for charging the
But this is
applicant.
telling.
It's very
the-
good. I
This
think
tells
it's
the
good.
applicant you shall pay both the site plan review consultant fee as well as the water availability review fee. Every project that I've identified here.
Supposing you had another discipline like solar or something.
Like
I think
traffic
it's
is
so
what you're
specific.
suggesting. But that usually comes during your hearings, and then you ask for a peer review.
Yep.
Which is different than requiring every application to come to you with a retainer for a site plan review and water availability review.
For a specialist for like hydrology or solar or.
But what I'm suggesting, Rosemary, is this is requiring them to pay a retainer for an expert to opine about water availability. It doesn't mean you can't ask for more later on.
So I think the difference
Yeah.
between what this is and what a peer review is this is standard. For every application that he's listed, these are getting submitted, the reviews are getting done, unless for some reason there's not a need to do the water review. But this is standard practice with every application now. This is the review that's getting done. You're not gonna, for the instance where you have a project where you want a traffic review, that's a peer review, that's a one-off, that's where you say, you've given us a report, you've given us a traffic study, now we want an independent person to review that traffic study. That's the difference between them. Peer reviews are case by case. You might need peer review for other things that won't come up on every application, but you want every application that he's categorized here to go through a full site plan engineering review and a water review. So those are just like, now they're built into the process. The peer review is what you use on the case by case basis, where you have a unique circumstance or you have a very large project that needs like an additional review of the applicant's engineer or whatever. Does that, hopefully that clarifies the difference.
As long as it makes it easier for the applicant as well as the town to collect.
Well, I mean,
money.
this makes it very clear
Right.
what they have to do at the beginning, and it standardizes the process for them. It guarantees on your end that these fees get submitted. We have a source to draw the money from when these reviews need to happen. So I mean, I think it clarifies it for everyone,
Fine.
what we go, what you have to do.
I like to see things a little bit further in advance so we can
I
digest
know.
them, but
I had a holiday. I took a few days for the holiday,
good.
despite
But-
Mr. Hardy's
but
best efforts to defeat
This,
them.
this is gonna come back to you, because what I'll do is I will take this and ask
Review
the
it, yeah.
reviewers to help us kind of categorize how to charge fees for these in a reasonable way, and in a way that's gonna cover the expense. And then we'll bring that back with figures filled in, and then you can
More
move.
specific.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you can move forward.
So we'll continue this item to our February meeting.
Bill?
And we'll probably be ready to take a vote in February when we get Ashley's additional input from Weston and Sampson. So thank you, Todd, for doing that.
Good job, Todd.
And Ed, if you could just kind of get Todd's language out to us before the February meeting.
2 weeks ahead.
Yes, Tricia.
Well, my question is, if everyone's okay with this, should we vote to adopt this,
No.
acknowledging that Ashley is the changes she's going to potentially make to this are how the table's presented and put numbers in? Because if we haven't adopted it, it's not yet adopted, right?
Well, you can't adopt it. You have to
No.
have a
Numbers,
pub.
Trish.
Yeah.
We have to look at it,
Yeah,
review it.
I think you have to have a public hearing as well.
So do we need to vote to have a public hearing or not?
This is.
It's not going to be ready for advertising before your February meeting.
And then my second thing is, I know that there is someone at Weston and Sampson who has particularly been working with the public water districts, right? So if we need a review,
Yes.
would it be possible to have that person,
That's the plan.
identify?
And I
as the
still,
person?
and I admit, I still owe you her resume. But the idea is that the two gentlemen that I gave you are more, those guys are groundwater and well guys.
Right.
Nicole is the public water supply lady.
So, in the long run, I think it would be good if we had one person, right, of the two groundwater guys, if it was possible, who really understood, and it would save, over time, it would be a faster process, right? Because they
Sure.
would understand the hydrology here, and they would understand the hydric soil and all that other sort of stuff. And they both have really good resumes. Is there a way forward for selecting one of those people to be our primary groundwater?
If you tell me
consultant?
which one, I will let him know.
I mean, we could look at the resumes, or I don't know the way to. I don't know the best way to do it, but I do think having somebody who becomes very familiar with our issues would be helpful.
So for the February meeting, maybe we get the revised content, figures, also, approve that, get that to public hearing if we need to, and then, we sort of look at the resumes as part of the package and make a recommendation on a singular groundwater person.
Right. So we have never, we have adopted amendments to our bylaws and our policies and procedures, but not in the context of a public hearing. But are you recommending, Todd, that it would be safer to?
Still, I'm not sure, because this is your escrow fee schedule,
Right.
and I'm not sure.
Right. No, I think I think just to be on the safe side, it's best to have a public hearing.
I mean, there's no downside to having the public hearing, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's an exercise in transparency and
Right. Exactly.
Sort of
Exactly. It
good practice.
doesn't involve a cost, but it's still
Yeah.
I think a good precaution. So let's plan on that then.
And just to wrap it up, we started off with the policies and procedures. I did revise those a little bit to identify the fact that you would have site plan review as well as water availability review. Okay.
Conceptually, I'm totally on board with how you've laid that out.
Okay. So but before we go any further, because the escrow schedule identifies when water availability review shall be required, right? I have minor subdivisions of 3 units or more. Are we comfortable with that?
Oh, yes.
Honestly, I just pulled a number. Ashley? And I think I think you should require for minor subdivisions because it's up to 9 units now.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But I don't know if 3 is the number for you. Any thoughts?
I think 3 is a great number. I'd stick with it.
I mean, there's no standard out there. I mean,
Unless your water folks say that it's not necessary.
I mean, I can ask that question. And the hard part about picking a number is that every circumstance is different. Like 3 lots, one place is not the same as 3 lots in another location. So it's hard to say, like, you
Is
know,
there
4 lots
another-
in one place might be fine and 3 in another might be more of a concern for certain reasons. It's,
I think the answer is no to this question, but is there another rubric that's not units or lots to be used here that standardizes for that exact piece of feedback?
Tricia? Do you have a?
I'm thinking, go ahead.
Well, the one thing I was going to say is that 4 is the trigger for conservation
I
development.
was thinking the same.
So if 4 is the trigger for conservation development, maybe that's a good number.
That seems reasonable.
You know,
Consistent.
it's consistent.
It's consistent. No, I agree with that as well. I'm comfortable with that. Let's stick with that number unless Ashley comes up with a different number based on her discussions.
I'll
with the
ask,
experts.
but we can go with 4
We're
for
not the
now.
only town that's doing this, you know, so.
No.
So somebody at Weston and Sampson may know a lot more about this kind of thing, so that would be good. Okay, well, I don't think we need to take a vote. Do we need to vote to continue this matter or simply put it on the agenda for February?
It's on the agenda for
Put it on.
February.
Okay, very good. Okay. Thank you, Todd, for putting those numbers together. And that brings us to 2C, which is, this is again a Tricia item, additional recommended performance standards for waterfront 1 and 2 zoning districts. And this, I believe, came out of a conversation that Tricia had with Dave Stewart, who is on the Harbor Commission. So, Tricia, you want to take it from there and tell us what you'd like?
Well, it's.
This has already gone to town council.
This is
but
already,
This would be a supplemental.
This has already gone to town council, but this would be a supplemental, which is that RIDEM has been to the Harbor Commission, at the Harbor Commission's not only request, but insistence, to discuss their plans for the Chase Building underneath the bridge. And they are proposing a commercial marina, as best I understand. In the waterfront, we allow a commercial dock, but the marina is a recreational marina. So I do think that we need to think about what standards we would want to have in terms of a commercial marina. And it probably means that we need to differentiate a commercial marina from a commercial dock. We have a couple of small commercial docks now, where, you know, a smaller number of commercial fishermen come in and load and unload, but they're pretty small. We haven't, the RIDEM has not come to the planning board, obviously, with a proposal, but at some point they will. But I do think that we need to think about getting something. Now, whether or not that can be something that, how quickly that goes to the council in terms of language, I don't know. That's up to Ashley and Todd.
Well, they're going to be hearing about, there's going to be there's going to be language already in what they're going to hear at a public hearing in February. I mean, I don't know, Todd, if you would think it would be appropriate if that were drafted and it's an amendment at the public hearing to add that use with the standards. So you'd be amending basically the same section where it would be fitting into, and you'd be saying, here's an additional use that we've thought of since we passed this along to you. Requesting that you add this as an amendment at the public hearing.
I mean, it probably makes sense to seize that opportunity.
I would.
Like, proverbially, open the hood once and work on it.
you're not asking them to amend it by like adding a whole new section or something that's not related. It's a use that has come to your attention since you sent that draft, and you want to make sure that the draft that's in front of them for consideration includes that use.
Makes sense to me.
And Tricia, you're saying they want to add a recreational marina or commercial marina? A commercial marina.
So if the planning board, you know, supports the effort, I think we, the logistical question, I guess, well, no, you could. So we could draft something, you could consider it on you could talk about it on February 4th and agree with the language, and then agree to send a request to the town council to add that as an amendment at the public hearing, as long as the legal counsel agrees.
This is assuming you want a commercial marina as a use.
I mean, start there, right?
And that's what I was trying to look for now, to see what we have a commercial dock, is that
We have a
right?
commercial dock, but that's
I
not,
don't think we have commercial marina as a use.
And I think
have
marina is
commercial-
specific to
we have a
recreation.
right.
Does the marina come under the guise of CRMC? Do we have any regulations from CRMC regarding?
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, how it's
There-
constructed
Yeah.
Yeah.
and where things are constructed, but not as to the use, what uses are permitted or
Can you-
prohibited.
Can you
The
go,
size.
do we have a marina definition, right?
That's
That
what I
we're
was looking
proposing?
Did you just scroll past it? Like,
Did I?
If you do command F.
Marina and boatyard.
there it is.
Marina or boatyard?
There it is.
That doesn't say anything about recreation.
No.
Or commercial specific, so.
No, it's not specific.
I mean, do you need to distinguish between commercial and recreational? I mean, the size of the vessels would be a differentiator there.
So, and actually, now that I see this, I think we took commercial out because some of the marinas have, a couple of fishing boats, right, that come in. I think, and again, this is not firsthand, but my understanding is that this would be a marina that would really be geared towards the commercial fishing fleet on Narragansett Bay. And if you've ever seen the commercial fishing ports over in Galilee
Bedford.
or in Wickford, I mean, they can be large operations, and they often involve refrigerated trucks that are, idling and dieseling. There's, if boats come in at 2:00 in the morning and the whole place is like lit up like, we don't really know exactly the size and scale, but, that the only way to get there is through two residential streets, right? You're either going down Riverside Drive or you're going down Evans Avenue. And I'm not saying that we couldn't do it, but I think if you were to have something like that, you would need to have some real performance standards or objective criteria so that it could fit in the neighborhood, in the location that it's in, and not be of unlimited size and unlimited hours of operation and unlimited numbers of refrigerated trucks and all that other kind of stuff.
We had this before, and we eliminated it on Cary Lane when we abandoned Cary Lane. We had it going down for the commercial. I mean, as you say, the traffic and going through the residential.
So what's our next step here? Do we need to
No, you've
craft?
directed staff to put something together for a use as commercial marina with either specific and objective criteria or performance standards. Trying to understand what standards, noise, traffic.
Lighting?
Lighting.
I know hours of operation, but I don't know how much you can limit that for that use.
I mean,
I don't know either, but you might be able to limit things like loading or unloading or trucks idling it, in the middle of the night. I don't know, but.
I'm wondering if there's any other communities out there that might have standards already defined. That's a starting point.
I feel relatively confident that we can find something out there. I mean, it's Rhode Island. There's got to be
Yeah.
some coastal community has to have some stuff somewhere.
I have a question. Just looking, I just pulled up some of the other stuff. So we have this as a definition that doesn't specify commercial or recreation. And then it seems like we have performance standards or something for marina or boatyard, which is building footprint, storage areas, noise management plan, and then storage and disposal. So is it more adding to that section, which is under like WF1, WF2 use table, performance standards? This is the one I just pulled up from like September 4th. Is it really just updating that versus changing the definition here?
Well, I think there's a couple of different ways you can go with this, depending on what you want to accomplish, because you could separate recreational and commercial, but I think we talked about that when we went through this the first time, and we decided not to do that because we didn't want to prohibit, the smaller commercial boats that do use marinas from doing that. So if you separated them, you'd still have, that issue would still exist. Maybe, and I can look out there and see what's out there. Maybe there's a way to do this that, and again, without knowing exactly what's being planned, it's hard to say, but if it were strictly a commercial marina, then maybe we can focus on that. Not necessarily prohibiting commercial boats from recreational marinas, but specifying that it's strictly used for commercial operation, and then we could take those
80% of the use is commercial.
Right. I was also thinking along the lines of like a percentage of the amount of boats that use the marina are commercial, and that makes you commercial, which prevents you from prohibiting commercial boats in the what we'll call, I guess, more recreational marinas. And then we can take those standards that we already have and expand upon them or increase them based on the fact that it's a strictly commercial marina. Or you can turn this into a definition of a recreational marina and say that 80% of the boats that go there are recreational, and then stay silent on a commercial marina, which means it's not in your use table. And then they can petition the zoning official to look for a use in the use table that is allowed by special use permit that they would classify a commercial marina under. So we'd also have to think about that. That wasn't I can appreciate.
Well, no, I mean, I'm just trying to think of like, over the long run, are we better served playing offense here or defense, right? Meaning, if we play offense, then we're taking proactive steps to put in
the criteria
we want, as opposed to having to play defense, backpedal, and maybe have something fall through the cracks. I lean towards playing offense here.
I think Bill's hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly the thing to do. And I especially because if the proposer of this marina is the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So I think it would be good to be proactive and, and memorialize if we were going to have an application for something like this, it would have to meet certain criteria, which would make it, that something that would be compatible with the neighborhood, so that, we don't end up with an entity or a business that isn't compatible with the neighborhood.
I think it's in the best interest of all stakeholders to play offense here.
So maybe we could have something for our February meeting, and if we came to agreement on that, we could bring it to the council and say...
Yeah. We can try that. I need to look at the procedure. That's my concern.
And so that we're aligned, are we going to clarify by adding recreation marina boatyard and then a commercial one? Do we want to at least...
My recommendation is that if you want to be more offensive than defensive, that I think that you write a definition for a commercial marina, and you write the standards for a commercial marina, and we write it in such a way that we don't get in the way of the commercial boats that do want to use another marina.
This smaller guys
Right.
there too, that
So this would be, that we would write it as a use that's primarily used as a commercial marina, and then we would take the standards we already have for regular marina, and we'd work off of that.
To that point, would we need to change the standards from, if we, for example, let's say make commercial marina 80%, commercial boat 20%, maybe non, do we have to do that and make the clarification for the recreational as well?
I don't think so, but we can think about that. I think the way, and again, we're just kind of spitballing some stuff here, but I think the way it would work is that if you have a definition for a commercial marina that says that it's 80% commercially used, anything that's less than that falls under that category of just marina. And I don't know if 80% is the right number. I would want to figure that out, I guess. Not sure how, but.
We'll do what we can. Okay?
Okay, I think we have a plan.
How's Janice tonight?
I'm just thinking, when you talk about the restrictions, if they're commercial boats, if they have freezers on them, refrigeration, you're gonna have the noise from that equipment
Yeah.
running.
Yeah.
And some of them come in early in the morning and they have to unload and get their catch to market.
Yeah. It's a problem.
The site is very small, there's very limited parking, and there are houses very close. So,
But they don't always need to park there. I mean, in my experience, a lot of them are dropped off and picked up when they're finished working at the end of 3 or 4 days, or however many days they're out at sea.
But is the parking actually for the refrigeration trucks that might be waiting, is that more the issue? Because those are also going to have to idle or have some level of waiting. So there is a noise, a significant noise consideration, not just from the boats idling, but also from
Right.
trucks waiting.
Which is why I think if we try to benchmark against some existing criteria or language that other communities are using, they've probably thought this through and, facing some of the same problems.
Right. Are they silent, though, in other communities?
I guess we'll find out.
I think you're optimistic.
The west side.
It's where the Soviet factory ship pulls in up to your pier.
yeah. Okay, well, we'll discuss this again in February.
Maybe we'll be on the vanguard here. We'll be leading as a community in the ocean state.
Okay, I think we're finished with this agenda item, and we can go on. The next agenda item, 2D, was put in as kind of a placeholder, but I don't think it belongs on the agenda at all, so I'm going to suggest we skip over it.
What is it?
It is 2D, which is additional recommendations to zoning amendments, and I think Ed put this on the agenda because he thought Tricia might have additional items, but she
Tricia
does
or
not.
anyone? Or anyone? No? Okay.
I do not.
Okay.
Okay. So now we can go on to 2E, which is scheduling a public workshop to inform the public on proposed zoning amendments. This public workshop would have to do with Waterfront 1 and Waterfront 2, and it would be a service to people in those zones or abutting those zones who have questions and concerns about their own property. and they would come to the planning board to get information rather than clog up the public hearing at the town council level in February. I believe I've got that right.
I think it's a little bit broader than that, though, Stu. It's not just waterfront 1 and 2, it's any of the zoning ordinance amendments we're suggesting, or amendments to the future land use map and zoning maps.
Right.
So whomever.
Right. Yes.
Would conservation development be part of that menu, or is it kind of a separate thing? Because I know people have questions about that as well. Does it fall into that zoning category or separate topic?
I would think no, because this is about the proposed zoning amendments. We can certainly do something for people that have questions about the conservation development process separately.
I think we did talk about maybe holding a workshop where we would invite, people who do business for land development regularly in Tiverton and have them come and go, walk through the process.
The civil engineers,
Right.
so that when they're drafting plans, they know a little bit more about conservation development. I think that would be very helpful.
I think we should pay Scott Millar to come and do that again, but open it up to the engineers and the developers,
Right.
and that would be money well spent.
Right. Right.
I'm sure that he would be willing to do that.
Well, maybe at our February meeting, we could talk about scheduling a date for that and invite
Let me reach out to him.
As far as the workshop of the planning board, and I think we should have given some more background on this. As you probably know, the town council is going to hold its public hearing on these amendments on February 10. It's going to hold a workshop 2 weeks before that on January 27th. Ed, I've talked to Ed and Joan Chabot, the town clerk. They have the mailing lists already. They have the advertisements already. And those are going out this week between the paper and to the printer to get everything sent out. We have just over 1,100 mailings going out because of the waterfront zones and the changes to the form-based code zones.
February 10th.
Correct.
So what if we had a workshop on one of the Saturdays after? If we had a workshop after the council workshop, but before the public hearing on a Saturday?
So between January 27 and February 10.
And if it's a workshop, we don't need to worry about a quorum.
So that's either the 1st or the 8th.
But I think a Saturday morning would be a more user-friendly time than an evening meeting, particularly for elderly people.
It's either the 1st or the 8th. Those are the 2 Saturdays before the 10th.
I'd opt for the first, just because
I
it
think
gives us a
just to
little more time.
give us a little more time.
And then we should try and find a way to let as many people know. The notices are already printed, correct?
They are being printed,
Now.
correct?
So it'd be too late to add something to them.
I spoke with the solicitor and with the clerk about even including a notice about the town council's own workshop in the advertisement, and we decided not to include that because we don't want people to be confused between a workshop and the public hearing. No one's required to have the workshop, and I don't want people showing up to the workshop thinking that they're at the public hearing.
Although we did commit to the council, we did commit to the council that we were going to have this workshop. And in part, the reason that we said we were going to have this was to give people an opportunity to get their questions answered before they get to before the council has their
Sure.
public hearing.
And I agree, it should be between the council's workshop and its public hearing.
And just so that I'm clear, picking up on where Steve was going before, at this proposed workshop on Saturday the 1st, would we also be covering conservation development? Or is that would be separate involving our expert?
How long do you want to be here on Saturday morning?
To just clear the day. No, no. I just needed.
I would recommend that it be restricted to the items that will be brought up in the town council hearing, because the whole idea is to take some of the burden off the town council, but give the public an opportunity to, to ask the questions about their own property that they have. I mean, as we all went through a hearing twice actually on waterfront, and we got a lot of people who were there. They weren't asking about general policy. They were asking about their specific piece of land. So, it would be nice to have to focus our workshop on that.
So does February 1st work?
So February 1st works for Ashley, and it works for me.
I can make it work.
Okay.
What time, Stu?
So I would say 9 o'clock.
That'll be in Scotland.
Excuse me?
It's going to be notified.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wonder if we could put an ad in the Secundit Times using our own planning board budget funds to get the word out. I'm not sure how the best way to get the word out. A mailing would be way too expensive.
Not a block ad, like for hire.
It'll be on the, and make sure it's on the website. Can you estimate even what the cost would be for an ad?
Wouldn't that like $500?
You could say informational meeting, no votes will be taken, general, make it,
We
Not
can name
too
it like one of our.
And make it clear that the public
yeah, informational meeting.
can ask questions and get answers about their own property as well as more general issues.
Well, and I'm sure it'll be announced at the council meeting, when the council's having their workshop, it'll be announced that the planning board's going to be having this.
Right. And I wonder if we could get it on the general website of the town of Tiverton, where that banner goes across listing all of the upcoming events. If that couldn't be one of the events that would be included. I don't know if Dave Robert is the person to talk to about that, but that would be nice. At least that, and then something in the Secundit Times. And then hopefully word will spread. And people will, start talking about it in social media.
Does the town still have that telephone system set up?
The
they send-
call system that
Yeah.
goes out.
That's
Yeah.
just for
Code red.
emergency, right?
It depends. Some of them are just designated for emergencies. Other towns have a system that does announcements. I don't know what the town
I
has.
think ours is just for emergencies.
Yeah.
Plus, plus the townwide one goes to everybody in town who's registered.
Yeah.
So you'd be be calling 8,000 people to tell them about this workshop that many of whom wouldn't be involved whatsoever.
Probably generate more questions than anything.
Well, somebody's gonna put it on Facebook, that's gonna happen, so.
It'd be nice if they brought their lot number.
We can.
Well, we can look it up by address.
That's fine.
Well, so many, we run into that before, where guy didn't even recognize his own lot. It was a blank lot, and we kept trying to blow it up and show it to him. And half of them don't have an idea what their lot number is, they don't really know.
As
And
long as
unless we
we-
can blow those sections up fairly quickly to show them what they're talking about.
Well, that was
You
what we
can't
were.
tell anything off of the
Right,
the
we were,
zoning map.
we were
just too
talking about
small.
using the screen here and having Ashley, just pull up the plat and lot. If you have the address, they should at least have the address.
Yeah, that's all you need is an address.
An address and then
It's
they'll
just
just
a
plat
blank
and lot
lot.
comes
Or he
up.
didn't know what.
Well,
they-
I think part of the difficulty was that we were switching back and forth from somebody giving us an address, and then we were going to a PDF of the town in a map that doesn't have all the lot lines on it, and can be hard to tell exactly where you fall in that, but I think we can manage it.
There's nothing in here about permitting funds for advertising.
No.
Okay, so
Well, it sounds like we have a date and a plan, and we'll get the word out.
we'll get the word out, and Ed can check and make sure that this room is available on that date.
Are you doing the advertising or not?
We are I think, does everybody agree an ad in the Secana Times?
It's going to be run how many times?
Once, twice.
I'd probably do it twice. I'd probably do it just twice.
So at 5 something a pop.
Well,
We-
the other option we could find out, you know, you know the public notice, you know the public notices in the
In the back.
back?
Yeah.
We could
Like the
probably
higher.
just do it as a public notice in the back. And that would, I think those are a lot less expensive and.
Yeah, but no one ever reads those.
Oh, I don't know, a lot of people
They
read
do.
those. A lot of people read those.
If it's bold,
Okay, well,
We can do a smaller one like we do for our applicants. It's a little bit more
Like the
reasonable.
higher.
It's like
yeah,
1 to 200.
DPW.
Sure. Let's do that.
Yeah.
okay, good.
You have time to get that in For the
February
23rd?
1, For February 1, yeah.
for the 2 weeks before, so it'll be advertised on the 30th and the 23rd?
Yeah, yep.
Is there any other prep we need to discuss for that February 1?
I need a vote to authorize advertising for 2 weeks in the Secana Times.
So moved.
And I'll second that for purposes of discussion. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All those in favor? Okay.
So I'll ask a question about the format that you'd like to have. Are you looking for like an open, like people can just come in and ask questions? Do you want a presentation that explains and kind of walks through what they're gonna see at the public hearing? How would you like to?
I think that whatever gets the presentation for the council, the slides for the council workshop, which won't be too long, would be start with that, and then just let people
Ask questions.
kind of like we did when we had the public
Okay.
hearings and people came up, and we can explain to people, this is, we're here to answer questions. You're welcome, if there's something you don't like and you object to, or you're for, and you think is great,
Go to the public
Go to
hearing.
the public hearing with the council on the 10th, but we're here to answer questions.
And I think you want to make sure in whatever you put out there that it's clear that it's a question and answer
Only.
session, that you're not having a
Editing.
meeting, you're not voting
Yeah.
on things, you're not hearing an application, you're simply having a question and answer session related to the zoning.
I think that's very good, but I'll tell you that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to get
You got your stopwatch ready?
a public hearing and a workshop mixed up.
Well, I mean, you can do your best. to
But
just-
that's
That's
just
all we
human,
can
that's
do.
just human nature in the town of Tiverton, and
I mean,
and
that's
we
just
can-
people in general.
exactly, that's just,
The critical thinking
Right.
are ours.
Okay.
Species strong point right now, so.
okay, I think we have a plan on this one, and Ed, if you have any issues, you can contact me, and I'll try to put some language together or whatever if you're struggling with that. So
Short and to the point.
just give me a call or an email. And I'm happy to work with you on that, Ed. So I think we can now come to the next agenda item, which is 2F. And this is something that...
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy, can I just interrupt for 1 second? There's a representative from Helger Brothers here. Could we take them out of order?
Sure. Yes, I didn't realize that. Yes, I would ask for a motion to take our agenda out of order and to bring up the agenda item 2H, which is a recommendation to Town Council on renewal of license for Helger Brothers Sand and Gravel LLC, and do that rather than, and do that as the next item on our agenda in place of 2F. So Ashley,
Yep.
Ashley was going to arrange to go out, and I think you did go out today.
We did. Myself, Thomas Verada, who is the doing building inspections right now, and John Frank, who is the zoning officer, went to the site, met with the owner, discussed that basically what he's doing is receiving material there, processing it, and it's going back out. They're doing very little actual quarrying, and the area that is, had been quarried previously or last year hasn't expanded in size to this year. I took a couple pictures of the site. None of us had any concerns.
Okay, does anybody...
You are?
My name is Brendan Martin. I'm here representing Mr. Helger at his request due to a death in his family.
Jesse?
Yeah, his grandfather passed away.
Well,
I'll make a motion.
Could I just ask a...
Well,
all right.
Robert's Rules of Order, Tricia, why don't you make the motion? I'll second the motion, then we'll have the discussion.
So I'll make a motion to recommend to the town council the renewal of the license of Helger Brothers Sand and Gravel LLC at 1764 Crandall Road.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now we can have a discussion, Bill.
I was just curious, has there been any complaints from any of the neighbors or anything?
He had indicated to us that there hasn't, and I'm not aware of any.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. You said that it's coming in? Mm-hmm. They're bringing process and bringing it onto site, or they're not taking it off the site?
He said a majority of what they're doing is not actually taking material out of the ground. They're not taking a lot of material out of the ground. The area that has been was designated as the quarry area is not been expanded.
Okay, but when you threw me when you said they were bringing material in.
So they do material processing.
So raw material in, finished material out.
Yes.
That wasn't the purpose of that before. It was always the material that was on the property, not bringing into the property.
Can you speak to the historical use of the property?
I can't.
Okay.
It's mostly screen loom. So what happens is, loom will come in, and it's run through a screener and then sent out as clean screen loom.
But the loom is not coming from that particular parcel.
No.
That's a little different than...
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? We have a motion.
Screening loam is certainly lower impact than
Oh, sure.
crushing rock.
And also lower impact when it, not being extracted from the site. So they are, I don't want to make the representation that he said that they're not quarrying the site, but it's very limited and they are not expanding the area that's being quarried.
I understand, but I'm thinking of it's in a residential zone, it's pre-existing non-conforming use, and are we opening ourselves up to commercialization?
I don't know what the legal non-conforming use is.
Well, it was there. It's the last one on the books.
I understand, we all think it's just a quarry and probably assume it was just taken from its own site.
from
But
the-
I don't know that, Ms. Eva, so we'd have to research what the pre-existing use was and whether they had previously brought in material that was processed and taken off. I know you're shaking your head and you've been here
All my life.
longer than any of us. I don't have your historical knowledge, and I don't know what the records show.
Well, we're here to vote on the quarry license, though, and I mean, I think we have all the information that we need to vote on the quarry.
That's a good point. If there's an enforcement issue that needs to be,
That's
We're
separate.
going to have him do it, do the research. I'm not a problem with that.
okay, so there may be an enforcement issue. Separate.
You know, at the risk of speaking off agenda, we might want to think about putting an agenda item, putting an item on a future agenda to discuss quarrying and quasi-quarrying operations going on in the town of Tiverton that appear to be in violation of the both our soil erosion and sediment control ordinance, town ordinance, which is Chapter 65, and our own subdivision regulations on certain sites in town where developments have been proposed and partially approved, and large amounts of material, rock, gravel, and loam are coming off those properties. So I'm just saying that this is an item because I'm getting questions about it. And so I'm going to sort of make that request that on a future agenda, we may want to have a discussion about that. And I can work with Ed and Ashley to tell them exactly the plats and lots around town where that's going on. I just saw it yesterday.
I'm going to caution you on that, and we'll talk about that.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
It feels like, and Rosemary, I totally appreciate there may be a document somewhere that gives specificity around what is involved in quarrying, but processing loam from other places doesn't seem like that's really out of bounds for quarry work. But I think the reality is that's not our purview here. It's
Right.
there's no current violations.
I got a little bit off agenda, but I just did want to mention it because I know it's been on people's minds because it's happening in very high visibility parts of town. But having said that,
And that's fine, they have a
we will
license, so.
we will go back. So I think that unless there are any other further questions or comments for Helger Brothers, that we're prepared now to vote on the motion that was made and seconded. All those in favor, raise their right hand. Okay.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, and we have one abstention. Everybody else votes yes. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you,
I would have actually taken you earlier, but I didn't realize you were. So that brings us back to F. Yes, and Ed and I talked about this yesterday, and we were both agreeing that the last time we discussed architectural design standards for commercial zones other than Waterfront 1 and Waterfront 2, we came up with a plan. We had a motion and a second, but I never called the question. I forgot to call the question. And what we were talking about was grouping together architectural design standards for general commercial, highway commercial, village commercial, industrial, traditional Main Street, which is that part of the form-based code north of Judson Street up to the Fall River border, and the new form-based code zone, which thanks to artificial intelligence called to our attention by Bill Gerlach, we are now going to call the mixed-use pedestrian district. This will be a combination of the pedestrian-friendly destination district and the neighborhood business district on Main Road. So we talked about architectural design standards, and I talked about how we could take what other people have already done. In some cases, we actually had design standards, but not enforceable because they are not part of our subdivision regulations. And I think we generally agreed, and I've watched the tape a couple of times, generally agreed that we can take them all together, have a public hearing on all of them at the same time to save cost, and to delegate authority to staff to decide when they would like to do that, when they would like to schedule a public hearing for amendments to the subdivision regulations that would deal with all of those architectural design standards. At the same time, I agreed to take a look at the general commercial and see if I could come up with design standards based in part on Waterfront 2 design standards, but also making changes and incorporating items from other towns that seem to make sense for our general commercial district. I did that and then distributed that for this meeting. I also put some language together for the village commercial. This is Tiverton Four Corners, or a small portion of Tiverton Four Corners National Register District. And that simply is based on the Secretary of the Interior standards, which other towns have done. And I put that together and distributed that in advance of this meeting. So that's where we stand. And so I think that all we need to do tonight is what we should have done the last time we discussed this, and actually have a motion and call the question and have a vote. Ed, did I get that right? You were gonna look at it, take another look at it, and so I apologize for that, but I simply forgot to call the question. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we authorize staff to advertise for a public hearing and set the date for a public hearing at a time of their choosing when it makes sense to them. And Ashley does owe us some design standards for the form-based code districts, and also for industrial, which most of that is cut and paste. Because we already have documents at hand that we're borrowing from that have already been approved for the town of Tiverton. So, but package that all together, and so that would be the motion that we were discussing last time. Does anybody wish to make a second? Then we can have a discussion on this.
I'll second.
So, Dick is seconding that motion. Now, any further discussion? Does everybody understand what our plan is here?
I think I'm tracking, but just to make sure from a process perspective, are we going to have the opportunity to discuss outside of a public hearing the forthcoming drafts?
Yes. I would never put a draft in front of you at a public hearing. That would be awful.
There we go.
My intent is to bring you the first cut of this, and like Stu mentioned, we're structuring this within your regulations. We're going to take Stu's language that he's provided, we'll insert that, and you'll get a whole section that will cover every zoning district and what the standards are. My plan is to deliver that to you for your February meeting. We can at least start the process. If we run out of time, we can continue it. We can make a decision if you want to, hold a special meeting to talk about it. And then when you feel comfortable with that document, let me know, and Ed and I will work together and get a public hearing on the calendar. That's my plan. But yes, to your question, I would not do that to you. That would not be nice.
Tricia?
Stu's going to kill me here because I have a couple of concerns. One of them Ashley might be able to work with. The waterfront language has a lot of shalls and musts in it. The new general commercial language has a lot of preferreds in it. So they're different, and I think we need to have a document that is consistent all the way through, and things that should be shalls because we're not, this is what we want should be shalls, and things where we're going to be flexible should be preferred. But the syntax of the documents it's really different. I still do have, for example, a concern in the waterfront with a language that says you literally can't have a metal building. I don't want a whole lot of metal buildings in the waterfront, but if somebody buys the Quality Boatyard and decides to put a marina in there, they're going to put up a metal building. We can make it look nice. It doesn't have to be an ugly one, but frankly, somebody who's building a marina these days is going to put up a metal building. But the syntax thing concerns me that they're different. That's one thing. The second thing is I'm really good with design standards, having a plan for design standards for waterfront and for Main Road because we've been through those zones. I think that the design standards, though, should follow our adoption of any new zoning recommendations in a zone. So we haven't really been through general commercial yet. We haven't been through industrial. And as much as I would love to see some adherence to historical designs or historical goals at Four Corners in the village commercial, I feel like we need, if we're going to go as far as talking about adopting, the national standards for historic structures in a zone, and that's a big ask. That we need to get buy-in from the people in that zone.
You can't do a backdoor historic district like that.
I really think I think if we try and do it this way, we're going to set people off, and they're going to push back and not even want to hear about it. And we already know that it's been tried a couple of times in Four Corners, and every time it's been tried, the property owners get up in arms and are adamantly opposed to it. So, I think it's worthwhile trying again, but I think the way to do it is to first, my opinion is the first thing we need to do is update the waterfront zone, the watershed zone, because those regulations are 25 years old now, and while they were state-of-the-art when we did them in 2001, they are no longer state-of-the-art, and that's in the watershed, so that's number one. Then we have to look at village commercial as a zone, and as part of looking at village commercial as a zone, look at the design standards. But I'm really worried about losing the battle right away in village commercial if we don't start by getting buy-in and feedback from the property owners there, because those standards they're a heavy lift.
I actually agree with Tricia on both points that she's made. I think that we probably should take the village commercial right off the table. That doesn't bother me very much because it's such a tiny area. There are only 12 properties, and it's built out, and not much is going to be happening there anytime soon. And maybe we can also put this on the agenda for the Tiverton Historic Preservation Advisory Board to look at. But I agree that we probably should take that off the table. It could very possibly raise hackles, and it's not going to make a big difference for the town of Tiverton because, as I said, that area is already built out. And I think most of the people do want to maintain the historic character because that's one of the reasons people go there. It's like Wickford Village. So I agree with that. I also agree that we need to clean up the syntax and differences that now exist between general commercial. I took to heart Tricia's comments the last time we discussed that, and Tricia had some concerns about prohibiting metal, for example. And so I made the general commercial standards more flexible. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized there's no such thing as an objectionable a building material. What is objectionable is the way that is used. So it's all about how the building is presented to the public. And again, the front facade is more important than the sides and the rear that are less visible. So I tried to build more flexibility, and I looked at other towns to make sure that we would be consistent with what some other towns have done to build more flexibility into the general commercial design standards that I put together. So I will volunteer, Tricia, to take a look at the waterfront. We don't actually have design standards for waterfront 1, only waterfront 2. So I'll take a look at the design standards that we put together for waterfront 2 and make those more flexible and consistent with the general commercial.
And just to be on record, I'm okay with some things being shoulds, because I think that's actually simpler and better for the developer, and it avoids discussions. I think we just have to pick the things that we think should be shoulds, and then the other things where, where preferred is better.
And I think there's an easy way to clean up syntax in the sense that you can have each district have its section, and each district has a set of requirements and recommendations. So you have to do these, we'd really like you to do these, and each district has both.
Perfect.
That works. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
And we'll take our best shot at what's a shall and what's a should, and when you get the draft, you guys can flip things around and we can just move what's shall and what's should. And I can take, what Stu has put together here and build that into the framework that we already have, which we'll kind of alter to have those two components within each district.
Okay, and I'll take a look at it and make some recommendations and share that with Todd and Ashley and Tricia too. So, I think that we do need to take a vote to authorize staff to move ahead.
I'm not too concerned with that vote at this point, because as Ashley said, she's not going to advertise or schedule a public hearing without bringing you a draft anyways.
No. And you're going to tell me when you're ready.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So staff has its direction.
Okay, so we'll continue this item onto the February agenda and just for an update on where we are and how we've addressed the issues that came up tonight. So that's good.
Well, if a draft is ready for February, we can...
That's my hope.
I mean, if
That's
there's
my plan.
draft is ready, we can review it in February,
You can
right?
start looking at it.
We can put some drafts, we can have a draft ready for the general commercial.
Will you just withdraw your motion, please?
So I will withdraw my motion, and
That's good.
so this will be continued to February, and hopefully we will have some materials that we can share with the committee that will reflect the discussion we had tonight, and that And then the committee can informally say, yes, this is probably ready to go forward to a public hearing. Okay. The next item would be the one-year license renewal for Hometown Country View Estates, 213 Hurst Lane. And again, I'm going to defer to Ashley because I think she...
Myself, Thomas, and John went out there and looked at that property, drove around. The grounds are in good condition. It's well kept. We went into the community center and walked through the building with the staff person that was there. None of us saw anything that we would say rises to the level of a violation or anything that would prevent the license from being renewed. But there are some recommendations that we would make and ask the council to, require them to make these improvements. They're relatively minor. I think there's one of them that potentially could be less than minor. But these are, like I said, relatively small things. There were window cranks that, were missing. There was some door jam, not being necessarily in compliance, where the two floors came together with the doorways. And so I have a written summary of that. I would pull that all together, put it in a memorandum to the council and send it, and just ask them to, make these like conditional items and give them 6 months or something to make those upgrades.
And then
May I ask?
they'd go out and,
Okay, well, let's...
We'd have to go back and make sure that it's
Yeah.
done.
So I'll make a motion to approve a one-year extension of the license for Country View Estates with Ashley's, together with Ashley's recommendations,
Could I
and
ask?
send to town council. Do we have a second on that?
So,
Okay, so we have a second. Either Rosemary or Stephen seconded
Steve,
it.
do it.
So now there's a
I have
question.
a question, Ashley, in your capacity and in the field. Has there, a fire department go in and do inspections or anything on a property like that? Only if they called upon or,
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if there are ongoing fire inspections that have to happen.
I don't know.
I
like.
don't know, but I would guess
Thought maybe
that
you knew.
a community facility like that has I don't know if there's a threshold of the number of public, but if they have a fire alarm system, if they have a sprinkler system, I know those have to get tested.
Yeah. I just
But
wondered.
beyond that, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments about Country View Estates license renewal recommendation to town council? Hearing none. All of those in favor? Okay, very good. Okay, so I think the next item on the agenda is approval of planning board budget for the fiscal year that begins July 1st, 2025. We are being asked to get that to town council with a copy to town administrator as soon as possible. And I put together a draft, and we were hoping to get some numbers on hydrology. Those haven't come in yet. But I think you all have a copy of the draft that reflects what we discussed at our last meeting. So would anybody care to make a motion to approve? If we get a second, then we can have a discussion and see if we need to do any amendments on this letter.
I'll make a motion to approve the chairman's letter requesting the 2025 budget for the planning board.
And do we have a second? Second. Okay, Dick Taylor seconds it, so a discussion. So what I did is simply basically what we agreed to last time, which is to double the amount for advertising from $3,000 to $6,000, and to double the amount for professional and technical services from $10,000 to $20,000, and I put some justification in here. So I think we need to, I don't think we can wait until we get an estimate from URI. I think we probably need to go ahead with this because town council is getting antsy about it, and we don't want to. So does anybody have any suggestions for any changes? If you don't, I will clean it up and deliver it to Joan Shabbat tomorrow.
And we received from, I think, VA put together.
Well, that's different. That's
All right.
Well, this is just gives you the history of the budget.
Yeah.
So Ed got this from the town. I took it and made a workbook, which everybody can have access to, I can send, but this cover sheet shows you for the last 10 years what the the final budget was, because some of them did change. You'll see that in these documents, and then had the change over year to year. So if you look at 2014, and I imagine before that you do see some bigger numbers, because I think that's when we were doing the survey planning. But there's some pretty good information if you look at this. But that just gives you, we've been pretty flat for the last 3 years as far as our budget.
And we discussed this in pretty much detail when you brought it up, about doubling the one,
Yeah.
and cutting it out.
It's not an exact science, but,
Yeah.
but we know where the expenses are coming up. And we also agreed that we should not put a number together for preparation for the new comprehensive community plan that is coming due in the next few years, but that we should simply refer to it in the letter to give the town council some heads up that this is an extra expense that's coming up. So if everybody's happy with that, I'll take the draft off and I'll put my signature on it. And I'd like to thank Todd for some suggestions he made too, as well. Okay? I think we have to vote on it, though. Those in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay. So that brings us, the next item is an item that we discussed at our last meeting, and I think we have an agreement that to keep things simple, that we probably should hold back any recommendations on increasing the development impact fee for schools, or expanding that fee to cover other town services that will be brought about by new home construction in the town of Tiverton, that we should hold that item to a later date, that we're in danger of overwhelming town council with recommendations at this point. And in order to make any changes in that fee, it is necessary to do another needs assessment, and that's going to be a very expensive proposition. It's based on a 5-year capital improvement plan. I'm not even sure that some of the departments in town even have 5-year capital improvement plans. I know a lot of that slipped during COVID, and it never really was updated. So I think that's an issue that we can probably bring up at some time when we have, less business with town council. Bill did, I think, suggest that we keep it on the radar scope, and so that's why we put it on the agenda. But I think that going forward, we don't even need to have it on the agenda. I won't forget about it, And at the end of the day, if the planning board doesn't wish to do anything about it, I will come to the town council as a private citizen and make the recommendation. And then it's up to them. If they want to leave money on the table and walk away from it, that's up to them.
Stu, you had mentioned potentially doing a letter to the new town administrator that was incoming, is that still on the table? Because to your point, I think this is something that is...
Well, I don't think so. I think the poor man is up to his neck in issues at the present time. I think we should put development impact fees on the back burner. Quite frankly, we've had them for, 15 years now, almost 20 years, and they've never been updated, despite the fact that they're supposed to be updated every, I think, 3 years. So, it's not going to kill the town to put that on the back burner.
Well, we've got, with all this development coming up.
Yeah,
I
I feel like it might
even
be
the
a missed opportunity.
256.
Right, but keep in mind that...
Right now, the cost per student is 18,000 and something.
That's on the low end. For Rhode
And-
Island, it's in
yeah,
the 19 to 20
and
range.
the average across Rhode Island is only 12,000 per student. And we're talking about a daycare center that has slots for 64 people alone, not counting kids that are already school age.
Yeah.
You could, with the school department coming at the last 2 months before the end of the year with a big deficit.
Right.
I mean, I think...
there's gonna be a big impact.
When I was, like, when you were like, hey, let's put it on the back burner, I was thinking like till March, because I understand they have a lot going on, but like, if anybody who works in business, if there's money being left on the table, especially with our school system issue, our issue with our, funding our fire and departments and paramedic departments and having everything we need for that, I do think that, leaving money on the table, especially with potential development that we are going to see, is not in the best interest. And whether we go as private citizens, whatever, but I do feel like we should, as a planning board, do something formal. And I would say in March, like, I understand they're gonna have a lot on their plate, but they signed up for this. Just like we signed up for this. So I think that, I think it's an important thing, understanding what's happening across our town.
I'd just like to make it clear that this issue, that the planning board did not get involved in development impact fees when the fees were first established. A private individual, me, came before the town council at the time, and Andy Tights was the town solicitor, and he put it together, and he found the consultant who was capable of putting together the needs assessment and so on and so forth. So I don't mind doing it again. I've done it once already. But if you'd like to have it on the agenda, is there a consensus around the table that we should maybe put it on the agenda for maybe a very brief discussion in March? Yes, Tricia, do you have a recommendation?
So, I tend to agree with Stu in terms of when you would approach the council with something like this. I also think that if you're going to approach the council, we've got to understand this a whole lot better than we do. I mean, when I read the laws, it's about future needs, and it's about future capital requirements.
Exactly.
Not how many teachers or how many police or paying salaries. None of that counts. So I don't even think we understand it all that well. I think we should take some time and try and figure out exactly what this entails, get a ballpark of how much it might cost. But, this council really, in all fairness to them, and yes, they did sign up for this, but there's a tsunami of stuff coming at them right now, including a not insignificant portion from us already with all this zoning. So I agree with Stu. I don't think we should let it fall through the cracks, but I think we need to have our ducks a lot more in a row and know a lot more about this than we do. And wait until, this council's got their feet underneath them a little bit on the zoning stuff first, because That's the priority. So that's just my.
And affordable low and moderate income housing units are generally exempted from the fee.
By statute, they are.
So, so that's, that's a source of revenue that won't be happening. Well, I can put something together, or maybe we can actually bring an expert in, maybe somebody from another town, maybe a planner from another town that has a more comprehensive development impact fee that is more updated than ours and maybe covers more items than just schools.
It's all set by statute. I think we just need the needs assessment.
You have to have a
expert.
needs assessment and you have to have a capital budget. Those are the two things that you have to have in order to use the impact fee. And you only have a needs assessment for the school. You don't have a needs assessment for the municipality.
And that was because Mr. Shamoon, who was the consultant, went around to the different departments that would be impacted by new residential development and found out that they didn't have a 5-year capital improvement budget. They're supposed to. State law requires towns to do that, but they didn't. So that was one of the reasons why we restricted it to the schools, because only the schools had the 5-year capital improvement budget.
And you're not the only ones. Charlestown has it this way, Hopkinton has it this way. I mean, I'm having a conversation with Hopkinton right now because they're in the same exact position. It hasn't been updated in a very long time. We should be able to spend it on things other than the schools. And so we're looking at helping them do a needs assessment to expand the ability to use the fee, not just for the schools, but for the municipalities, and what they would need to be able to do that under the statute. But it's pretty standard. It's the state law really tells you to do this, you have to do this.
Yeah, and it's very complex. The formulation is very complex.
From a question standpoint, like in reality, with the needs assessment and getting that information, would that fall underneath our purview as planning board? It feels like it would.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, because the development impact fee is in the zoning code.
And I know you don't want to hear this, but historically, statewide planning used to come out once a month, whatever, when we had multiple meetings, and we had to produce a needs assessment. I mean, every department had to submit it. It was pulling teeth.
Not a needs assessment, but a 5-year capital improvement budget.
Right, like if there's work we can do to your point, get that done before it goes to them, I think that's important. Especially from like our middle school there's structural things even on the base one, the base.
Let's put this on the agenda in March for a very brief discussion. Maybe Ashley will have some interesting anecdotes from Hopkinton, you were saying.
Or even if it's April, I just feel like waiting 2 years is not.
March or April, exactly. But again, just a very brief update and discussion. And I might actually put something together on paper to explain the steps in the process that you need to go through. So, okay. I think that's all we need there on that item, unless somebody else has a question or comment. Hearing none, let's go on to 2K is the issue of education for the planning board. And I received an email from Joan Shabbat, and I don't know if everybody on the planning board got that same email, reminding us that we have to do a certain amount of training. I think it's like a 3-hour course, once every 2 years. Otherwise, we're not eligible to serve on the planning board. But we never, ever hear about when training sessions are available. And I have a planning board email account, which is, pbchair@tiverton.ri.gov, and I get a lot of emails from state governmental agencies about different things that have to do with planning. I'm sure Ashley and Todd are in the same boat. I never hear anything. I have never heard anything about training sessions. So, so Ashley, do you have anything to add here?
Could I interject?
Because we're being told that we can't serve on the planning board
No.
unless we're
Well,
trained.
no, that wasn't.
Nobody said that.
Yeah.
Nobody said that.
Well, I thought Joan Chavez said
No.
it.
It was about making sure that any training that you do
Gets
take,
logged.
it gets logged
Yes.
by the town.
Yes.
So you share your sort of training completion certificate.
Or whatever, yes.
So that's the point number one. Point number two, and anyone can do this, if you go to the statewide planning, you can submit your email to get the monthly statewide planning sort of
Email.
newsletter email, which I do. And Stu, to your point, they do advertise training through that mechanism. Maybe there's other vehicles, but
Okay.
I mean, I've seen something come across.
I don't know
So-
what they're making available specifically in that email, but we'll go back to the where this came from. There is a training requirement. I've looked at that training requirement, and at this point, I don't believe any of you are in violation of not having enough training or the required amount of training. Some of you are going to have to do a training very soon in order to keep that status. I have a table that I started, I need to finish it, but I have also reached out to statewide planning about training and asking some questions about when is training going to be available. Historically, I mean, I think this goes back to when this bill was being contemplated, and there was a lot of concern about the ability to, one, get people trained, because when you do the math, it was like over 600 people that would become required to be trained. I will say that the program to train you is not meeting the need. I can't say anything other than that. They don't have the ability to offer enough of it. Statewide planning is tasked with it. There's not enough training, but setting that aside, none of you are deficient at the moment. I am putting together this spreadsheet. The two things that I think we need to make sure that you do is that when your training is done and you get a certificate, make sure that not only that Joan gets a copy, but that Ed gets a copy, and that we are keeping a file for planning board members in the planning office. My understanding is that some of you submitted your training certificates, which was not at all recognized in that email, that quite honestly, I think scared people unnecessarily. But anyway.
Well, I read that email as a mandate, not as a...
Well, it is a state mandate that you be trained, but there is no repercussion. It states right in the law that no decision of any planning board is jeopardized by the fact that any member is not trained, because that was another huge concern that we spent a lot of time talking about. I was the legislative liaison for APA when this bill was conceived of, and spent a lot of time talking about it and bringing up these concerns and working through them and trying to make sure that the legislation would not create this situation where there's just not enough training to train everyone, and also that it would not jeopardize anyone's status as a planning board member or any decisions you made if a member wasn't trained. So you do not have to worry about that. I did, and I have contacted statewide planning for a different reason, but for some reason, I'm not getting their training emails. I get all their other emails. I'm on all their lists as 3 different town planners, but there's a training email that just went out that I got secondhand, and I am questioning them as to why I didn't get it. I will get that information to you. There are, I believe, 3 trainings that are going to be available in January. So I will make sure that goes out to you immediately so that you have those dates. And as none of you are currently deficient, if any of you are getting close, I will make sure that you know that so that you can consider those trainings in January to prevent that from happening. But that's kind of where we are. I've also made an offer on behalf of APA to work with statewide planning to come up with a training that will qualify under their program as a training that gets you what you need, that could be administered by local planners. So there is a provision in the law that says that statewide planning can approve a secondary training program. Makes a ton of sense to me to have APA devise that program, get statewide planning to approve it as part of the training program, and then allow municipal planners or even APA planners, maybe that don't work in the municipality but are working somewhere else, to give these trainings, because statewide planning does not have the staff and resources to give enough trainings. So we're working on it. You guys are all okay. I will be in touch immediately if you're on the verge of not okay, and I will get those January dates out to you right away.
Thank you.
Bill, I have a question. Where do you sign up for this stuff on statewide planning?
So I brought that up to statewide planning, and I was told, oh no, there's a way to get there. And there is a way to get there. It brings you to the document that you and I looked at, which is their training program for the year. There are no specific dates.
No. So how do you get emails?
Actually, I think, now that I'm thinking through it, I attended a training, actually Dick and I attended the same training at some point last year.
Yeah, and I signed up for the newsletter, never got it.
Oh, I get it. And I think it was because I sent an email to one of the gentlemen who co-facilitated that. I was like, hey man, add me to your mail list. And that's when I'm just checking my email. I've gotten 3 or 4 of them since then.
Does your APA newsletter also identify trainings?
Usually, but not if we don't get it directly. And there's a story behind it, but anyway, we're working to improve the availability of training. I looked at what you guys have done, what your deadlines are. Nobody's deficient. We'll get you into the training, as soon as it's available, for whatever you're missing. But it's okay.
So will you send us the January
Yes.
trainings?
Yes.
So that we can sign up?
If the state is so shorthanded, it'd be nice if we could get credit for things like the presentation that we had on the Conservation District.
And technically you can, but statewide planning has to approve
Well, that's
whatever
what I'm
the
saying.
training is, so.
If we could report that to them, and they would give you credit for that.
Well, you sent something out to us.
I did.
In
But for some reason, the last email that came out of statewide planning with the January trainings that are available, I got it secondhand, and so I have to figure out why. But we are doing things to try to improve, your ability to get
Why
training.
can they just not put this stuff on their website? It isn't, why can they just not put this on the website?
Ed
don't
will also
have an
start
answer.
forwarding you emails that he gets from statewide planning regarding training.
I don't see too many for training opportunities.
Okay.
Now that we're talking about it. But I'll send them all.
I don't care.
Well, you are looking for planning board training, sign up, click here. It's not like that. You have to dig your way through and find this PDF document that is
Right,
their
but it-
training program for the whole year, but it does not,
have any
I
dates
know.
or how to sign up or where
It's the fine print.
Yeah,
Well,
it should just be as simple as a training calendar, part of their website.
it
Doesn't have to be overarching.
I cannot account for the reticence to tell you ahead of time when the trainings are. I don't know why, but I want to say one of them that I sent you guys, it didn't time was to be determined. It's sign up for this, time is to be determined. How do you sign up for that? I don't know when it is. I don't know why. I can't answer for that, but I don't disagree with you.
Are they mostly Zoom meetings or are they mixed?
They mix them. They will do some online and they will do some in person.
I signed up for 2 Zoom meetings and I could not get in. And I talked to Nancy and and it said, the administrator had to apply something or other. I mean, and I told her. I was diligently trying, they sent me the codes and everything. So I ended up doing the in-person.
Okay, great.
Okay, enough about that.
Thank you, Ashley, for
So
the help.
we'll take this step by step. So that brings us to 2L, Annual Planning Board Report for 2024. So I do this every year, and I'm required to do this. In the town charter, it says that the planning board shall produce an annual report. So here's my report. I sent it to Ashley and Todd in advance, and they caught some, and they added and made some changes, and
Is yours?
and so you have it. If anybody, oh, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Is that the land use?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was wonderful, Stu.
Yeah.
The collate is good job.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Look
you
great.
found a typo, but it was a great report.
Yeah.
My minutia?
I still haven't trained my brand-new computer to do spell check or catch gremlins, so, okay, so but actually, we have to have a vote for the planning board to accept the annual report. And then tomorrow, when I deliver the budget letter, I can deliver the annual report at the same time, hopefully without any
What happened to your
typos.
seal?
I don't know.
So
What's wrong with the
I'll
seal?
make a,
It's
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the 2024 annual planning board report as prepared by Stu, and thank him for the effort to do so.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor? Okay. Okay, will do. Will do. So that brings us to,
Dick.
so the election of officers, this again is something that is in our bylaws. We're required to have an annual election in January to elect 3 officers of the planning board, the chair, the vice chair, and a secretary. We've never had a secretary. Rosemary, has there ever been a secretary in your memory?
Our clerk has always been the same.
But our bylaws does list that as a position and has for a long, long time. Our bylaws do not create a process for electing. It simply says that you must have an election. So I went to Robert's Rules of Order, and they do have a flexible process for the election of officers, and so we can do that right now. But first, the first item would be to have a motion and a second to the motion to open nominations for chair, vice chair, and secretary. So I would invite somebody to make a motion and second that motion.
Do those need to be separate? One motion for each?
No.
Oh,
It's
well,
it's just a motion to take
Yeah.
those nominations. We will separately take the
Yeah,
nominations.
but
So moved.
We're opening
Second.
a negoti, yes, okay, so we have a, okay, so okay, all those any discussion about this? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, now we have a nomination process underway, officially underway. And so I will ask if any member of the planning board would like to nominate another member of the planning board or themselves, because Robert's Rules of Order say you can nominate yourself, as, and I'll start with chairman. Oh, by the way, I'm not standing again. So I'm making myself ineligible.
He'll reject it.
Okay.
He'll decline it.
Does anybody have a nomination for?
That would have been really helpful.
I'll
to
make a-
prepare for it because I wasn't ready.
Bill?
I'll make a nomination I'll make a motion to nominate Trish Hilton for chair.
I'll second that.
Second.
Okay, we don't need a second for that, just the nomination,
Yep.
according to Robert's Rules of Order. Okay. Is there anybody else would like to make would like to nominate somebody for chair? I don't.
Sure, now, Stu, you
Apparently
don't
not.
wanna stand- You sure you don't want to stand one more time?
No, I'd lose against you. So now I would like to invite any member of the planning board to make a nomination for another member of the planning board or for themselves to serve in the capacity as vice
No,
chair.
I think we need to take a vote on the chair.
Singularly, right, I agree.
Okay.
Get that out of the way so you know, like, who's off the table.
Okay, that's right. That's right.
Clamoring.
Got to take that chip off the board.
So this has to be, we can't vote yes. We have to vote for a specific name. So I will start this process by saying, I vote for Patricia Hilton as chair of the planning board. And I have to take, we have to do this by roll call. So Mr. Gerlach?
I vote for Trish Hilton as chair.
Okay. Ms. Gomes?
I vote for Patricia Hilton as chair.
Okay. Mr. Taylor?
I vote for Patricia Hilton.
Ms. Eva?
I vote for Patricia Hilton as chair.
Ms. Hilton?
I'm abstaining.
Ms. Lopes?
I vote for Patricia Hilton as chair.
Mr. Clark?
I vote for Patricia Hilton as chair.
Very good, thank you. We now have a new chair. Okay, now I would like to open the nomination for a vice chair.
I think the chair takes over.
Well, not necessarily at this meeting, unless she would like to.
No, I'll let
Let him finish now.
Okay.
Yeah. Town council doesn't do it instantly.
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do.
They close the meeting and then they open up another
okay.
meeting with the new table.
No, they don't close the meeting. They just-
Well, they
They just
continue.
switch chairs.
Okay.
But moving on, so
Okay, so-
one good turn deserves another, Bill.
So, hold on. So you're delegating to Mr. Hardy right now to run the elections. Is that what I understand? Thank you.
And so so one good turn deserves another over there, Bill. So I'd like to nominate William Gerlach as vice chair.
Excellent. Does anybody have another person to nominate for vice chair?
I nominate Stu.
No.
Well qualified, is knowledgeable.
No.
Should you not be able to serve one evening,
No.
he could step right in.
No, I'll be like Rosemary. I'll be like a former chair and a former vice chair.
Chair emeritus.
And I think, I think it's very healthy to have a change of leadership in any committee or board. And I think it's very unhealthy to have the same person elected over and over and over again.
So you have declined the nomination?
So I decline the nomination. So it appears that we only have one person nominated for.
Are there any other
Unless there are
vice chair.
others,
And I will begin this again as a role model. I vote for Mr. Gerlach for vice chair.
William Gerlach.
Mr. Gerlach.
You said Mr. Gerlach.
So now I will call the roll. Mr. Gerlach.
I abstain.
Ms. Gomes.
I vote for William.
Mr. Taylor. Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
I vote for William Gerlach.
Vice
chair.
Ms. Eva.
I vote for William Gerlach.
Ms. Hilton.
I vote for William Gerlach.
Ms. Lopes.
I vote for William Gerlach.
Mr. Clark.
I vote for William Gerlach.
Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Gerlach. So we have a new leadership team. And now, what do we do about secretary? If anybody wishes to serve as secretary or make a nomination for secretary, we can do that now. And the duties of the secretary are actually spelled out, as well as the duties of the chair and the vice chair in our bylaws. I believe it's in our bylaws.
Would it be helpful to just quickly review the secretary role?
Yeah, I've got the bylaws. I've got the bylaws with me, and so I can read that if I can find the bylaws.
I have it right here. It says, this is from our bylaws. Secretary. The planning board may appoint a secretary as deemed necessary. The duties of posting the agenda, recording of minutes, ensuring proper legal notice of hearings is provided, maintaining an applicant's file, and attending to the correspondence of the planning board shall be designated to the planning department clerk in the absence of the secretary. And in the event the planning department clerk position is vacant, the planning board's administrative officer shall perform these duties.
The general laws are very clear. It says you shall elect chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary. So, nomination?
I have a question. So like, Ed does most of these things now.
Yeah, you're not going to have to do anything.
What's that?
You won't have to do much.
Okay. It's just like if Ed gets hit by a bus, as we say in my industry, somebody steps in. Yeah, okay.
In that case, I'm going to nominate V.A. Lopes to
I'll work with you, Ed. I'll chip in.
Okay, we do in fact have a nomination for secretary. And anybody else make a nomination?
I'll vote against the
Yeah.
position. Not nominate, no.
But it is a requirement.
I don't care.
You're doing what, Rosemary?
I don't care.
I know you don't care, but you're doing what?
I'm not voting for the position.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we only have one nomination. I don't see anybody else making another nomination, either for another member of the planning board or for themselves, in which case I will start the process. I vote for V.A. Lopes as secretary. Mr. Gerlach.
I too will vote for V.A. Lopes as secretary.
Ms. Gomes.
I vote for V.A. Lopes.
Mr. Taylor.
I vote for V.A. Lopes as secretary.
Ms. Eva.
I oppose the position.
Thank you. That will be noted in the minutes.
I'm sure it will.
Ms. Hilton.
I vote for V.A. Lopes.
V.A. And Mr. Clark.
I vote for V.A. Lopes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Nominated Rosemary Eva, frankly.
What?
They should have nominated you for the position.
Minutia?
Okay.
Okay, so so now I think
It should have been
so,
Todd.
the next item we're going to pass over because Chris Shriver is on business travel today and couldn't be with us. But I think we should bring this over to our February meeting and let and Chris can give us an update because he is actually our official planning board liaison for the Harbor Commission. And some things are going on in the Harbor Commission.
Thank you for putting it on the agenda, whoever did it.
So that brings us to approval of minutes for our December 3rd meeting. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 3rd.
Okay, and do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion about the minutes for December 3rd? Did anybody find any problems? Rosemary, Janice?
They were
Okay.
good.
Then hearing no further discussion.
Janice, can you use your microphone to say that, please?
They were good.
Thank you.
Mic
We
drop.
get that in writing.
All of those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking, that's what I was thinking.
So, the status of the zoning code revision committee, Tricia is our liaison. I don't think you have a date for a new meeting.
We don't have a date for a new meeting, and we're hoping that that Jay Edwards, who has expressed an interest in continuing on, but would need to be appointed as a civilian member, could be.
So we talked about it at the last council meeting, and we approved a revision to the resolution so that a non-council member could be the chair. And so our solicitor was writing it. I talked to him over the weekend. It'll be on our agenda on Monday to approve, and Jay has already applied to take one of the vacant positions.
So once Jay is appointed by the council and takes the position, we'll have a chair again, because we don't have one right now and we have no other volunteers. So then we'll go back to work.
Yeah, and I will probably take over the council position or liaison, or however we do it.
Thank you, Deb.
But you're welcome.
Thank you, Deb.
When I get back from vacation.
Okay, so the last item is an update on the North Tiverton Business Park Committee.
Yes.
The business portion of it is kind of on the back burner while town council decides whether or not they want to dispose of the entire park to a potential purchaser. But we're being very active on economic revitalization in North Tiverton, and especially along the main road corridor north of Sousa Road. And we've got a public meeting tomorrow morning. It's kind of sort of a drop-in breakfast session from 8 to 10 at the VFW hall. And we've invited business owners or representatives of businesses in North Tiverton to come by and give express their views on what they think needs to be done to improve the business climate in North Tiverton. And then we also, thanks to the work of Ashley and Weston and Sampson, have two other sessions set up in the month of January for the general public. And again, the focus is on the people who live in that neighborhood in North Tiverton. To come by, and these both of these events, I believe, actually will be held at schools. One at the middle school and one at Pecasset.
Yes. So I'm gonna actually give you the dates.
Yeah,
so that
give us the dates and the
say
times.
that out loud on YouTube, and also so that you can spread that word around. As Stu said, there's a business coffee hour tomorrow from 8 to 10. At the VFW, we're asking businesses to, drop in when they're available, talk to us. We'll have laptops there so they can take the survey. There's a business survey as well as a community survey on the website. There's a specific website dedicated for the project. And we have a workshop, a community workshop, so, general public at the high school this Saturday at 10. And then on the 15th, which is next Wednesday, we have an evening workshop that begins at, I believe it's 5:30, and that is at the middle school, Pecasset Middle School. It'll be a repeat. It's the same workshop, but it's just two different opportunities, one on a Saturday, one on an evening,
So just
for people to come in and
Just
participate.
for clarification, Pecasset Middle School, we only have.
We only have
Pecasset
middle school and
we
then
have a middle
Pecasset
school.
Elementary.
Sorry,
It's like,
sorry.
it's okay.
Sorry. It's Pecasset.
Pecasset, okay, that's in North Tiverton. That's the elementary school
Yes.
in North Tiverton.
My
On Main Road.
apologies. Yes, Main Road, 242 Main Road. So
Excellent.
please spread the word to people and encourage them to attend. I encourage all of you to come to one of them if you can.
Thank you very much. And I believe that concludes our agenda for this evening. So thank you very much.
And I would just
Can I
like to
say one
thank,
thing?
I would just like to thank Stu for his time as chair and his leadership. And I've only been on for a couple of years, but the planning board's had a bit of a rough go for a while with a rotating staff and being underfunded and a lot of other things. And Stu's managed to steer the ship through some pretty tough waters. So I'd just like to thank Stu for
Well,
his leadership and all his hard work.
I resigned once before to make way for Sue Gill, but when she left town, things were in pretty bad shape, and no one else was willing to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So I'm happy to turn it over.
And you did a great job, so thank you very much for everything that you've done as chair.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have a privileged motion to adjourn?
So moved at 8:50.
Thank you.